The last piece to this mining or mineral puzzle is how do we get minerals out of earth? And the answer here is mining. So some quick ideas about mining is that minerals have to be removed from the ground before they can be made into any type of products. So the basic steps of the mining process deal with metals start out as an ore, something we call an ore. And the ore has to be mined. And in order for it to be useful to us, the ore has to get separated from the rest of the rock that it's like kind of mixed with. And so in order to do this, then the minerals must be separated from the ore. So ores are mineral deposits that contain enough minerals to be mined for profit. So just because you find a little bit of a mineral doesn't mean there's going to be a mine or mining, because it has to be first profitable. That has to contain enough or high enough concentrations of valuable minerals before they will start mining it. So bauxite, this is bauxite, is a rock right here. This whole thing is bauxite. And that contains minerals in it that we use to make aluminum. So in order for bauxite to actually be mined, this is the ore, there has to be enough of these minerals in there to make it valuable to produce the aluminum. So certain places on Earth are more likely to have different types of ores. So this is the job of a geologist, is to search for these ore deposits. Sometimes they can be hidden underground. Sometimes you have to travel to different possible locations to test the soil and the rocks for physical and chemical characteristics to ensure or to make sure that the rocks really do have these minerals in them. And all of these steps can indicate the presence of an ore deposit. So if they find a ore deposit, they have to determine the size. Because again, if there's not enough there to make a profit, they're not going to mine it. They'll outline the deposit and the surrounding geology on a map, and then from that they can calculate the valuable minerals. The mining will only happen if it seems profitable to do so. So there are a couple different types of mining. The first type is surface mining, and this is used to obtain ores near the surface. So the first step is kind of to blast and break up the soil that contains the rocks. And then these trucks are going to haul the broken rock to where it can be removed. So the rock waste needs to get separated from the valuable minerals. There are three types of surface mining: open pit, quarrying, and strip mining. Open pit mining creates a big pit from which ore is mined. So right here we have an example of open pit mining. Notice how it gets deeper and deeper. The size of the pit will grow as long as the miners can make a profit. So the size includes the diameter, and the depth, all depending on where the minerals are located. Quarrying is a type of open pit mining, and this produces rocks and minerals that are used to build buildings and roads. The third type of surface mining is strip mining. It's very similar to open pit mining, but instead of creating a hole in the ground, the ore is going to be removed in large strips. Those are your surface mining types, and then the other type of mining is underground mining. Sometimes minerals are buried deep in earth, and it can just be too expensive to remove the rock above it. And so they dig these underground mines, and they can be very, very deep. There's a gold mine in South Africa that's more than 3,700 meters or more than 2 miles deep. It's much more expensive than surface mining because you have to blast tunnels into the rocks, but you can't, these tunnels, they have to be structurally safe. So you can't just blast holes into the ground because you need to make sure the roof isn't going to collapse down on the people that are doing the mining. It's also fairly dangerous because you need fresh air and light, and getting that fresh air in can be tricky. A lot of times people who work in underground mines are breathing in particles, whether it's particles from the minerals being mined or soil particles, and so it can be tricky to breathe. And then the risk of explosions and tunnel collapse is very high. Placer mining is a third type of mining, and placer minerals will collect in stream gravels. This is your like panning for gold idea here. So the placer minerals can be found in modern rivers or in riverbeds that have dried up over the years. So in California, California's state nickname is the Golden State, and this is because in 1848, placer gold was discovered. This brought miners from all over the world to California to mine this gold. They would pan for gold in the river streams. This gold formed in the Sierra Nevada mountains, and the gold weathered out of the hard rock in these mountains and then ended up washing downstream. They later settled in the gravel deposits along the river. And it still has active gold and silver mines today out in California. There's still gold out there. So once we have minerals mined, we usually make metals out of them. Most minerals are a combination of different types of metals and other elements. So once you've blasted out the rock, you transport the rock to a refinery, so to speak, and the rock part that's not used, it's not valuable, so it's not used, and it's sometimes referred to as the waste rock. So you have to separate that waste rock from the valuable minerals. And to do this, you need to add some chemicals to the ores, and what the chemical is, the amount of the chemical will depend on what ore is being mined. And then you need to have some very high temperatures. In order to get aluminum from that waste rock, you need temperatures higher than 900 degrees Celsius to separate that aluminum. And it also requires huge amounts of electricity. So it takes quite a bit of energy to produce aluminum. So if you were to recycle 40 aluminum cans, so like your pop cans, it would save the energy that you find in 1 gallon of gas. Aluminum, copper, iron, and gold get used a lot in our buildings and our structures. These metals can be part of your computers. Copper wires help with electricity. And then things like steel are used to make buildings. Another use of our minerals is in the form of gemstones. Gemstones are materials that get cut and polished to use them in jewelry. What allows something to be a gemstone is somebody has to think they're pretty or beautiful. Generally, they are considered rare. And then they're considered hard minerals in that they don't scratch or break easily. So So examples of gemstones include jade, turquoise, diamonds, and emeralds. And their value will be based on how pretty they are, how rare they are, how popular they are, and how big and how they're cut. So gemstones in nature are uncut, unpolished. So these are natural gemstones. And then jewelers will polish them and cut them so that they reflect as much light as possible and they're shiny and pretty. So the way a mineral splits along a surface allows it to be cut to produce smooth surfaces. So remember that cleavage term we used earlier. Gems sparkle because the light bounces back when it hits it. So they get cut so that the most amount of light bounces back. So in this example here, we have the ruby. Other gemstones are considered opaque, meaning that light won't pass through them, and so they end up getting cut in a different way. So diamonds is one of the most popular gemstones. However, most diamonds are not actually used for gemstones. Because they're so hard, they're used to cut and polish other materials because they won't break, especially glass and other metals. Corundum is another mineral. It has a hardness of 9, so fairly hard again. So remember, diamonds have a hardness of 10. It's also used to make gems such as rubies and sapphires. So sapphires are blue and rubies are red. And it can also be used to produce sandpaper because it can grind other particles down. Synthetic or lab-made rubies and sapphires are used in lasers. So other useful minerals are maybe not as noticeable as these gemstones could be. So for example, we've talked about how the walls in a house uses gypsum in order to make the sheetrock. Glass in your window is made from sand, and the main component of sand is quartz. Talc, remember the softest mineral, hardness of 1, used to make baby powder. Halite is used for rock salt, so like when you make your homemade ice cream, you're using halite. Diamonds are most likely to be used for drill bits and saw blades. We've talked about how copper is used in electrical wiring, and the ore bauxite is used for aluminum in pop cans. So mining has an impact on the environment, and it can be hazardous to the people, like in underground mining, and also the environment. Miners need to restore the mined region to its natural state. This is state and federal laws that say this. And so the mineral resources are mostly non-renewable. So they need to be mined responsibly. They can't take all of these minerals, otherwise there would be none left. So the process of restoring the land to its natural state is called land reclamation. So you're reclaiming the land. So sometimes mining companies have to plant the native plants that had been destroyed. Pit mines can either be refilled with the soil that was removed, or they can be reshaped. And when they get reshaped, it helps them become more natural areas again. Those pit mines can also be filled with water to create a lake. And then pits could also be turned into landfills. And so I guess the point here is that mining companies have to do something with the land so that it's not dangerous to humans anymore, and so that it returns it to some natural beauty. The underground mines could sometimes be sealed off, or they could even be left open so that they can be a habitat for bats and other dark loving creatures. Mining creates a lot of pollution. There gets to be chemicals released from that mining process that can contaminate the water. And so the government has mining standards to protect the water quality. And so up in northern Minnesota right now, there is some debate about whether to open up a mine near the Boundary Waters Canoe area. And this Boundary Waters area is a federally protected area, and there's a lot of concern as to if they were to open a mine near it, would this water become contaminated?